Well, this is an unusual one. A video without a day on it, because I've decided that, well, the sun is shining, and so I'm going to have a little sit on my front deck because I can. And I thought that would mean that I could do you a favour, maybe. If you're thinking about building a boat, then you might find some of these hints and tips useful. They're not really hints and tips, they're just things that I have found useful. And I've been making a little list for a while. Um, and so I thought I should get that out because I mean, I could go on forever making this list. So anyway, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Um, First of all, get yourself a book, decent notebook. This has been invaluable. Knowing that this book has got just whatever I've recently been thinking about in it, and obviously older stuff as well. So, decent notebook, I would heartily recommend. Um, so I see people doing some boats, and it seems like they haven't planned it before they've started doing it. That amazes me. Each to their own, but um, yeah, I was kind of lucky in a way because COVID hit when in the midst of me ordering this and what have you. So I actually ended up with about 2 years between saying I wanted the boat and then actually getting it, maybe a bit more even. But there was a point where I was, literally I didn't tell them where I wanted the windows until they would actually put the base plate down. So um, I was able to mull over things and what have you, and that was really good. Um, Obviously, living on a boat is before I decided to build this one was extremely useful. I mean, when I bought Tilly next door, um, then I thought I knew what I wanted, and so I had obviously I didn't get a number of those things. I wanted an off-corridor bathroom. I've got a walk-through bathroom on Tilly. I'm putting a walk-through bathroom on this because it's actually just a better idea for the way that my life works. So, so I would heartily suggest, if you're doing it first off, then I would buy a boat and maybe sell it the next year. At least then you've at least got an idea of what you actually find useful and what you find annoys you. Um, uh, so first things first, I will take you on a little wander because some of these things I can show you in situ, and that gives you a better idea of what I'm talking about than if I just waffle. I know that Jeremy waffle is appreciated in some corners, but maybe not so much in others. When you are planning, then actually it's a weird thing, but you need to really start with the details first. And I didn't have the headspace for the details, so I ended up doing the planning as much as I possibly could, with some assistance from a friend of mine, John, who was really useful. Thank you, John. You've heard me say thank you, John, a number of times. He's been really useful. He's a good guy. But things like, so this here, how am I going to finish this? Well, I've been thinking about that for a while, and I'm actually going to span across this gap with a piece of 19mm, do some pocket holes into this board here, and so that will then give me something to mount, to glue, stick, whatever, something onto here that will form a a hatch liner, a sort of a return, if you like, a door return, window return. So things like that and details, well, such as I'm currently thinking about the shower gulper pump, that and how I'm actually going to access that and stuff. I knew roughly where it was going to go, but I hadn't actually thought through how I would get to it and what have you. So that's another thing. So cutting back insulation. So this here, you can see that from this angle, it sticks up, whatever. Now here, then you can see because I've done a brace across, then I needed to cut back here and what have you. Obviously this side I haven't. So this foil insulation stuff, I kind of did it because I could. I think it's probably not worth it for that alone. because it's a complete pain having covered everything up. Um, whether it's bits here, you know, where these wall carriers are attaching, you know, maybe there's a bit above it or whatever. Different areas. It's been annoying when I've had to get back underneath the foil. So I probably wouldn't use this foil wrap again, but I did it because I could, and it was relatively cheap. Um, having my boat next door has been an absolute godsend, because obviously I haven't had to live on this, I haven't had to stay on this, I haven't had to sleep on this, what have you. That has been an absolute godsend. Keep as much stuff not on the boat that you're building as you possibly can, because it all gets in the way. It's all a game of Tetris, and even things like planning what the cover strip will be here and how it is fixed. That I haven't done yet. You notice that I want invisible fixings everywhere. So how I fix that on, I haven't got that absolutely nailed yet. I think I've got an idea, and I think it'll work, but haven't done it yet. So, like I say, this is in no particular order. The fact that I am in the water, Evie is in the water now. That has turned out to be really, really useful. It didn't make any difference in terms of the costs of the boat, having it somewhere to build her, but it's really easy to get stuff in and out rather than having to go up a set of stairs and and balance everything and whatever. So I think that has been really handy. It wasn't exactly a plan. I was kind of forced into it, but it's worked out very well for me. Which also meant that I then ended up needing her blacking before I got her, because she was going into the water. And so that meant that she was going into the paint shed where she was built. So that meant that I then had her painted. And I think that realistically, she's been epoxied, and that's probably a better paint finish than I ever would have achieved, and will last longer and what have you. So, and that obviously it cost me some money, but in the long run, then I think it was probably a good thing. I've made a couple of assumptions with things like window liners and other little things. I was kind of aware that I hadn't clarified something, but I kind of thought, oh no, it's normal and whatever. So anyway, it wasn't. Things haven't always been what I wanted, because I wanted things that weren't normal. So I would encourage, don't assume that because other people are doing these things, they know exactly what you want, because you may want something different from what they normally do. The walls, I have used 12mm ply, not 10mm, and that has been really useful for things like the bends that I've put in at the front and the back. But more importantly than for anything else, then these are very, very, very rigid. So I can just screw into them, mount into them, shelves and what have you. I have, where I know there are going to be shelves, as in that bulkhead up there, then I have put in supports where I know they'll be, but pretty much anything in future, I know it's not going to be a problem anyway. Right, after the fighter jet, I think that I've been kind of lucky. I wanted to build Evie in the summer, and that would have made things easier and quicker and whatever from some respects, but in other respects then it would have made things harder. So here and in most other areas, I just butted the walls up. I didn't actually think about it too hard. I just kind of lightly butted them, but if you're building in the summer and you butt them, then the boat will shrink in the winter. If you check out Ollie Vieira's channel, he's linked in my bio or whatever. He had a problem where he had put the boat together in the summer tight, and then in the winter, then it shrank and everything buckled a bit. He just ran a saw blade down a number of them, and that dealt with it. Oh, trousers. Don't know whether you can see them. So these have got knee pads built into them, and as have my other ones and what have you. They are absolutely brilliant. I spent so much time on my knees that I'm wearing knee pads would be a complete pain. Um, Obviously, if you've got benches and stuff, then that's great. But if you're actually building it in a boat, then you're going to do stuff on the floor. So that's that. Oh, that reminds me. I really like my pencil in a little holster. It's one of those. Anyway, it's it being right there in my pocket all the time is really useful. I guess that's partly about the trousers and what have you, but it's a useful pencil anyway. Oh, um, talking of things that are useful, when you're measuring diagonals to find things that are square, then a tape measure that actually just has one thing on it rather than having an imperial scale as well means that when you're measuring across the diagonal, then you're measuring the same increments on both sides. So that's if you are doing diagonals to make sure that things are square, then that's useful. Right, what else is there? There is buying and piling up. Yeah, so because I had so much time, then I ended up buying a number of things that I knew I was going to need. I knew I was going to need a whale culprit. I knew I was going to need a shower tray. I knew I was going to need an oven. So I bought all of these things, some of them on eBay. My oven cost me the princely sum of £5.86 or something because it had a broken magnetron. So I replaced the magnetron for 25 quid. Great. But I could do that because I had the time, and so I could just kind of keep my eye out for things that were useful or going to be useful, that I knew were going to be useful. So when they were a bargain, then I bought them. I pre-finished the walls for me, then that has made things really nice and easy because obviously I put them up and they're done and I don't have to worry about them. I hate decorating, so that's kind of why I did that. Also, I wanted a wax finish, or I wanted a finish something like this, and my mate Brad, thanks Brad, suggested this, and I think it's worked well. Oh, the one tool that I cannot recommend enough is the track saw with full length tracks, two tracks so I can cut a full length board. That has been absolutely wonderful. Can't think what I would have done without it. I do regret not listening to John earlier about dust extraction. You'll see that you've seen that recently I've started doing dust extraction. It is obviously a good thing. It makes a world of difference. So I wish I'd done dust extraction all the way through. That would have been a better plan. Oh, and on the track saw, then don't go for a blade that's too fine. To begin with, I went for I think an 80 tooth, and it was burning the wood and whatever. So 60 tooth is what I've got on that because it provides a decent finish, hardly needs sanding. So there are a number of other things which I don't know whether they're good or bad decisions as yet. Most of those are sort of design decisions. Things like whether my radiators work well. Things like having a manifold system so that I can just heat one particular radiator. The lighting system. Oh, yeah. If you do something really complicated like this funky ceiling, if you're doing something really weird and wonderful like that, then that people don't do, there's probably a reason they don't do it. Certainly, this has been harder work than I thought it was going to be. So perhaps I should have prototyped it a bit more than I did. One more, templates and jigs. These were really handy when I was doing my sockets. Just made them add a little bit of scrap. Those so much easier than just measuring and what have you. So again, another handy thing about 12mm ply is that it's rigid enough that those are really easy. I think that concludes the votes from the Danish jury. Hope that was useful. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.